What it do, y'all? We back again, and in this video I'm going to be talking about shared energies in astrology. First, I want to speak on inconjunctions in astrology. Now, mainly and generally in astrology, they say that inconjunctions are two energies that have absolutely nothing to do with each other, or energies that don't see eye to eye. But over the years, and just studying and practicing astrology, I've picked up on certain patterns, and there's been one pattern or a couple of patterns within inconjunctions that I've seen, and they have to do with the planets. Now, I want to touch on about 6 pairs. The first pair is the 1st and the 8th house. The second pair is 2nd and the 7th. Third pair is 3rd and the 10th. Fourth pair is the 4th and the 9th. Fifth pair is the 5th and the 12th. And the final pair is the 6th and the 11th house. Now, with the 1st and the 8th house, this may be one of the most obvious ones, is Mars. Mars rules the 1st house, and what they say traditionally, Mars rules the 8th house. Now, I'm gonna also speak on that in this video, briefly, about certain planets being traditional and modern rulers, and just give my opinion on it. Now, the reason I call this video shared energies is because if what generally people say that inconjunctions are so indifferent and they don't have any common energies, how can Mars rule both the 1st and the 8th house, which is in conjunction? The second pair is the 2nd and 7th house. Now, this may be a little bit less obvious, but again, both of these energies are ruled by Venus. Venus is home in Taurus, and I believe Venus is also home in Libra. And again, I ask the question, if these two inconjunct signs are so indifferent, how are they both ruled by the same planet or have the similar energies? The next one, which might not be too obvious, is the 3rd and the 10th house. Now, on the surface, this may not seem similar at all, but I want you to think of seconds, nanoseconds, minutes, and hours versus decades, centuries, millenniums. I think the common energy in the 3rd and 10th house is time, but the quickness of time in terms of the 3rd house, and the endurance and longevity of time, which is the 10th house. The 4th house and the 9th house, again, might not be too obvious on the surface, but Jupiter is home in Sag, and Jupiter is exalted in the 4th house. So again, another inconjunct, and basically all of them have this, but another inconjunct pairing that has another planetary commonality. And as for the last one, the 3rd and the 10th house, the only pair I could come up with is, Mercury and Saturn. Quickness of time versus, in the endurance of it. Now, I'm gonna save. I'm gonna do the 6th house and the 11th house right now. Having a lot of Virgo energy and a lot of 11th house energy, and just seeing this play out in my life, I think it's very underrated how similar Virgo and Aquarius energy is. I think they're more similar than what people may think. Now, this isn't for every person and personalities that make up or have Virgo or 11th house makeup. I just see this within energies, and just in different manifestations. Virgo and Aquarius, they can be very calculative. They can be very detailed. This can be very odd energy. People may see these energies as odd more than the other, but this is shared energies. And I think one of the main shared energies of the 6th and the 11th house is, the word that comes to mind is scientific. These energies can play out their energies in a very methodical way, but depending on their energies, being mutable earth and fixed air, it's kind of like, I also think of like possibilities and opportunities. One being a feminine and one being a masculine, they're obviously gonna do things in different type of dual ways, but you can see the main thing that pops out to me is having a methodical sense of doing things. And maybe if Aquarius isn't so methodical, they can have a very unique way of doing things. And you can say that with Virgo also. Like, Virgo doesn't really do the norm. They can be in what you would call normal situations, but even that's kind of a stretch. Virgo can be a very underrated, unique energy. It is mutable earth, so they have different ways of doing things. Then we look at Aquarius, and then 11th house energy it's revolutionary. It has like built-in uniqueness, built-in change. Radical. Like, these energies can work very well together, because Aquarius is in Virgo's 6th house, and I believe Virgo is in Aquarius 8th house. And if you know anything about Uranus is exalted in Scorpio, or the 8th house. So both of these energies can really find the depth of themselves and the real uniqueness of themselves within each other. And last but not least, I think is one of my favorite underrated pairings, the 5th and the 12th house. Now, me personally, I do have a lot of these energies, so I do see more than what somebody wouldn't have, just being all around me. But I think the pairing between these two are very, very underrated. If we look at the 5th house and if we look at the 12th house, the most obvious thing that we could say about shared energies that they might have is creativity. Now, if we think of the 12th house as like the creativity of life, because they're both life, but I think of the 12th house as like being what they would call like primal waters, like the beginning. Like, think of like if life was like cooking. This may be like a weird analogy, but this is what I'm picking up right now. Like, if you think of the 12th house, or if life as cooking, think of like the 12th house as the ingredients. They're what makes up the dish. The 5th house creativity, it can be like that, but it's more with the outer creations. It's what it's fire, so it's like expressive creativity. So this could be like the taste. It's like if you're eating like Cajun food, or what you would call like exotic food, depending on who you are. That could be that Taurus Leo combination, like having the expression of taste. Like, depending on what ingredients you have, you can determine a certain expression through taste. And that's just one basic way you could look at it, but you can look at it like movies. Like, you can look at the 12th house as the whole correspondence, the whole connectivity of like the movie, the audience, the production. But you can look at the 5th house as the actual movie, like the actors and the actual art and illusion that they're trying to get across, the visual, the actual, I'm picking up the 12th house creativity can be the internal, and the 5th house can be the external. It's what can be done. But the 12th house being so broader is always going to be the encompasser, and the 5th house is always going to be the expression of the components within it. Like, how to say, like, the stage represents 5th house or Leo. Kind of think of like the stage being 12th house, and the actors, the props, the different movements within the play, because the play is on the stage, or it's in the stage, quote unquote. So you can think of the 12th house being the field, and the 5th house being the components within it. Like, there's a creativity in the field. That's why more scientists and more people are opening their eyes to that. Like, there's creativity in the field more than what you would see. And what you do see, that could be the 5th house. Like, it's just the creativity that you can do with manifestations, and the creativity of the 12th house is actually manifesting those things. You can look at 12th house as actually manifesting, and the 5th house is creating with what you manifested. Think of like 12th house, being life. There's always going to be life in different forms, but beings are already manifestation. So when a being gets pregnant, it's like creation within creation, and I think these energies go really well together. Leo and Pisces are a very underrated combination. If these energies were ever to work together, and they always do, like whenever you have a movie, whenever you have some sort of entertainment, you're gonna have the entertainment in the audience. Like, you're gonna have you can look at the 12th house or Pisces as the audience, or the receiver, or the collective receiver, the collective response, the collective mood or attitude. And you can look at the 5th house as if like, what's hot, or what's jumping, what's hype, like the piece, the art form, the creation, and how that relationship, quote unquote, in conjunction is that response to it. Like, just like the response between the created and the creator. Another area that you can find shared energies in is obviously trines. The reason being is because trines are always in the same element, and whenever you have the same element, you're obviously going to have the same or similar manifestations that come out of it. So for an example, Aries, Leo, and Sag are all in the element of fire. So with fire, there's always going to be some level of expression throughout all three of these signs, as well as creativity, movement, exploration, and like I said in my house series, fire will always harmonize or sextile air and air signs. So wherever you find it, fire, you will always, deal with relationships, some form of creative intellect, and, movement and networking. With water, the crab sign, Scorpio, Pisces, you're gonna, always deal with the internal emotions, feelings, intuitions, comforts, discomforts, and etc. With air, you got Gemini, Libra, Aquarius. You're always going to deal with some form of relationships and communication, socialism, words, pathways, logic, things of that sort. And in Earth, you got Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn. You're always going to have something real. You're always going to be dealing with some sort of physicality, some sort of procedure, plan, or something that's very dense, but not in a negative way. Just something that's dealing with time. With Earth, you're always dealing with some form of time as well. Another interesting thing that I'm kind of studying right now is mutable squares. Now, I want to take two examples, Gemini and Virgo, and Sag and Pisces. With Gemini and Virgo, obviously, you have Mercury. Mercury is the so-called ruling planet of both. So, but before I say anything, I want to say the reason I bring this up is because I don't think mutable squares are as harsh as, fixed or cardinal. Reason being, one of my thoughts is that, mutability is somewhat subtle, kind of a very free-flowing. So whenever free-flowing energies clash, it's not as intense as if fixed signs or cardinals may clash, because when fixed signs clash, it's like agitation, and when cardinals clash, it's really like what a clash means. Like a clash, like the clash of initiation. I just think of like rams hitting each other, or a car crash, or like two people fighting, like just an example. But as for mutable squares, if you look at Gemini and Virgo, their squares kind of go together. Or squares is all about growth and obstacles, but just getting over those obstacles. So an example of a square, Gemini and Virgo, could be Gemini could be thoughts, and Virgo can be the procedure, or the plan, or the realistic procedure that to make it tangible. So off the bat, that's not really a very intense square. It's almost like a square that life wants you to get through, or wants you to solve. Because one other thing is Virgo and sixth house energy is a very solution based energy. So Gemini may have a lot of thoughts, a lot of ideas, concepts, a lot of very mutable energy. The thing is, Virgo is our earth mutability. So it's different types of procedures to make them ideas real and thoughts real. Different type of metrics of it, procedures, experiments, solutions to, bring that into reality. On the flip side of that, Gemini and Virgo, that's, very mercurial, logic, earth, air, somewhat of a dense energy. On the flip side to that, you got Sag and Pisces, which is Jupiter and Neptune. But, both of the signs, traditionally they say Jupiter rules both. This square is kind of the same. It's not really that intense because Sag is what you see, Pisces is what you feel, and Pisces has that Neptune aspect to it, the energy to it. And I also want to say this, Neptune is exalted in Leo. Sag is Leo's fifth house. So just saying that this energy or this square, this mutable square, there's just a lot to work with. I think with mutable squares, there's a lot to work with, and it's not very like heartache or headache. It's, you may have a little bit of, well, I think the main agitation or problems that comes with mutable squares is the energy is mutable. So for an example, Sag and Pisces, the problem with this, or the problems or obstacles that may come up with this square, is that you could really not see the problem. When it comes to Sag and Pisces, mainly Pisces, is this could be just very less dense. You may, they say that Pisces rules or can be associated with illusion, and sometimes illusion is very tied to perception. Perception is not really a dense energy at all. It's more internal and cerebral and imaginative. So you can really say the same thing about the Gemini and Virgo square. A lot of the obstacles that come up may be more dense in that square, but still it's more of a cerebral thing. And I think that's really the main thing I'm trying to say is mutable squares are just less dense. They're less dense than a fixed or a cardinal square. Now, going to the other squares, Pisces to Gemini and Virgo to Sag, these are kind of the same, but whenever I think of Pisces and Gemini, I think of, illusions being brought up as a kid, or what I really think of is like people who hustle with their hands, like the 3-card trick, or, magicians, bringing the internal and imaginable with the physical, but, being less dense. Like, think of masks. Masks hide your identity, quote unquote, keep you mysterious, Pisces. But a mask is a certain type of instrument or tool that you can put over your face. You can look at that as either a Pisces Gemini square or a Pisces Virgo axis thing. With Virgo and Sag, that's more, it's kind of the same thing. It's kind of like preparation for a journey, or being optimistic, or quote unquote too optimistic, versus looking over your procedures, looking at the details. It's just, I just think mutable squares are just less dense. And the reason why I put this under shared energies is because I think mutable squares have a lot of shared energies. Just obviously Mercury being a shared planet between Gemini and Virgo, and Jupiter being a shared planet between Sag and Pisces. And you can just think of the manifestations that come out of that. And I hope this, sheds more light or helps anybody that, just was thinking about shared energies or similarities in astrology. This is just a interesting video that I wanted to make. And see you guys in the next one.